previous episode of Kemetic Spirituality.
This is the god Noon in Kemetic Spirituality.
Baptism in Kemet was how you entered into the presence of the Creatrix. It was through this activity that you were purified of your old self. The purpose of seeing these unks going over their heads, or you can say the life-giving water, or you can say the holy water of the god Noon, in which you are dipped and then risen, just like the god Ra or Amen Ra, which represents your rebirth, like the sun rising each morning.
Right? So out of these so-called primordial waters of the
Let's go to the good life, gotta live it. No time to cry over spilled wine. You gotta keep that energy and your destiny on the line. Your love is like water.
Okay, so to complete all of the creation gods, which we talked about the god Ptah, as you guys seen, we talked about the god Khnum being the potter, such as T.D. Jakes' The Potter's House. Okay, and now we talked about the god Atum as well, being the so-called creator god. And in this video, we're talking about the god Ra, also a creator god. Okay, so sometimes you hear people say Aten Ra.
Here, I want to add to your studies that Aten Ra is also connected to the pharaoh and or king Akhenaten. Aten Ra was the name of the deity of the solar disk, who is Atum. He was represented as a solar disk giving forth rays, each of which terminated in a hand holding the cross, just as you see in this picture. In the time of Amenhotep V, his wife, Queen Tai, attempted to make absolute and universal the worship of Aten Ra, who she maintained to be the same as the Syrian deity Adon Ra or Adonai. And so Amenhotep V slowly started to introduce this new form of a deity, originally Amun Atum, under the new name Aten Nefru. And then he gradually started to declare that the sun under this name to be the supreme deity in Egypt. To make matters even worse, Amenhotep V, in order to carry out these new plans of him and his wife, Tai, he closed all of the original temples of the original Neteru, degrading their priests, and he removed their capital of the empire to a new site at Tel El Amarna. Now, in honor of this brand new so-called sun deity, the pharaoh Amenhotep V changed his name to Akhenaten. Okay, so this lack of wisdom in his decision actually led to a revolution. It went totally against the original principles and natural laws of the spiritual practices of ancient Kemet. Now, this resulted into an overthrow of the 18th dynasty and the degradation or degrading of Aten Ra.
Those are the connection between Atum and Ra, also representing the aspects of the sun as it rises and sets during a 24-hour cycle. So, of course, Ra is also believed to be a creator god or Neteru. So, Ra was over time added to the so-called aspect of the god Atum, and he became the aspect of the noonday sun, where we're talking about the aspects of the sun and how that's represented in the Christian Bible in the book of Genesis. Now, the difference between this and how it's connected, how Ra is connected to Atum, once again, like in the previous video, Atum decided that he was ready to create, right? So Atum decided once again that it was time to create. Now, in this particular story, piggybacking off of what you already know about the god Ptah as well as the god Atum, this time in this particular story, out of the so-called lower waters, now we talked about that in the previous video, I'm not going to go into that, so you need to go watch it if you haven't already seen it. The god Atum raised up this so-called mound. Now, this was called like a primordial mound, like this is the first so-called piece of earth that ever existed on what we call earth. Now, the significance of this so-called mound is represented in Kemetic spirituality or Kemetic culture based on the Ben. So a Ben is that very top triangular like shape at the very top of the pyramid. That is the primordial mound. Now above this first piece of so-called land, this is where the god Ra was raised. Now you can see very there at the top when you think about the sun setting and falling, that Ra is right there at the noonday sun. That's represented by the mound and or the Ben. And let me tell y'all that like the Ben, if you think about that, people who make these things and sell them, like this obelisk, this little pyramid, that's the Ben in Kemetic spirituality. So Atum said, I am Kefra. The god Kefra is represented by a scarab beetle. So I am Kefra. This is the morning day sun. I am in the morning, I am Kefra. In the noon, I am Ra. And in the afternoon, I am Atum. Okay, that's that evening sun right before it sets. And then, of course, according to the book of Genesis, this is the first time that the actual sun rises and sets for the first time. And we call this first time a day. Now, this particular story now goes into Ra being taking over the form of creating and bringing forth the Netaru. So going back to the goddess Nut and her husband, the god Geb, baby, they was like Morticia and Gomez, you know, like from the Addams family. Yeah, they was that. So they couldn't keep their hands off of each other. So the god Ra decided to tell his son Shu, which is their father, to go down and separate the goddess Nut and the god Geb. That's why you see the god Shu in the middle and or holding up the goddess Nut, because they kept making babies pretty much. That actually goes into another part of the story as far as a couple of different other Netarus and or gods and goddesses. And then of course they say mankind was then formed by the tears of Ra, very similar to the god Atum as well. So after all of this stuff was created, Ra decided that he was going to actually become just like mankind, to be completely honest, and kind of put himself into the form of being like us. You know how they say, like in the Christian Bible, like God knows the things that you went through, because Jesus experienced everything that we went through, and that's why we can look at Jesus and see that Jesus overcame the world, so we can also overcome the world as well. Well, Ra kind of took form of a human being, so he became just like mankind. And in this particular story, Ra became the first ruler instead of Asar being the first pharaoh or king. Okay, so this is where the drama starts beginning, okay? Once again, back to the drama, because now we got more human form instead of more like, you know, cosmos and before the earth and things were made. So as Ra shaped himself into a human form, he actually began to grow old. So now all of the humans down here on earth is kind of like picking fun at Ra, like, look at Ra getting all old. He can't do nothing. Look at him. He barely get out. They was talking about his bones. They was talking about the color of his hair, because his hair was changing colors. You know how you get older and your hair turned gray? Well, it said in one of the stories that his hair was actually like a blue color, like lapis lazuli. Lapis lazuli is very connected to Kemetic spirituality as well, but we won't talk about that in this video. You can look it up if you want to, however. So they was talking about the god Ra, gossiping about him. They no longer feared Ra. Remember in the Christian Bible, men act like they didn't fear God anymore. So they no longer fear Ra. So Ra mad. Ra is upset. So he kind of brings everybody together, the Netaru, the gods and goddesses, whatever you want to call them. He's upset, brings them together, speaks to the god Noon and says, okay, like what are we gonna do about these humans? Because they down there breaking my law. They don't respect me anymore. They're not afraid of me anymore. And the Netaru decided, like, Ra, I mean, you Ra, what you gonna do? So send your eye out, right? Send your eye out and destroy all of them. How about you just do that? So baby, that's exactly what he did. Ra sent out his eye, and his eye is actually represented by the goddess Sekhmet. Now we're not gonna talk about that in this particular video. However, the god Ra sends out his eye in the form of the goddess Sekhmet to punish humankind for disobeying him and disobeying his rules. So that's it for this particular episode. I'll see you guys in the next one.